In the heart of Jerusalem, where ancient stones echo the whispers of millennia, the tension that punctuated daily life had become almost a hum in the background for Sergeant Yosef ben Eliezer. He was young, just 26, but the weight of his responsibilities had aged him beyond his years. Born and raised amidst the tumult of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Yosef had learned early on that life was fragile and often fleeting. His sharp eyes, the color of the Mediterranean Sea on a stormy day, scanned the bustling marketplace as he walked his patrol route. This had been his life for the past 5 years, a relentless cycle of vigilance and duty. Yosef's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden blast, a searing pain in his chest, and then a cold darkness. The explosion had been close, too close. As his consciousness ebbed away, the chaos of the marketplace faded into silence. When he opened his eyes again, Yosef found himself in a place that was both familiar and alien. It was the same marketplace, but it was bathed in an ethereal light, and everything was unnaturally still. "Am I dead?" he whispered, his voice echoing in the emptiness. A gentle voice responded, "Not quite." Yosef turned to see a figure standing before him, radiating a warmth and peace that he had never felt before. The figure's eyes were a deep, compassionate brown, and they seemed to hold the weight of the world's sorrows and joys. "Who are you?" Yosef asked, his voice trembling. "I am Yeshua," the figure replied. "You may know me as Jesus." Yosef's heart pounded in his chest, or where his chest had once been. "Jesus? But you're not real. You can't be real. This must be a dream." The figure smiled gently. "I assure you, Yosef, this is no dream. You have been given a glimpse beyond the veil that separates life and death." Yosef's mind raced. He had been raised in a devout Jewish family, taught to revere the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The idea of Jesus, the central figure of Christianity, was foreign, almost blasphemous. And yet here he was, standing before him. "Why am I here?" Yosef asked, his voice barely a whisper. "You have questions," Yeshua said, stepping closer. "Questions about the nature of God, about truth, and about the lies that have been told for centuries." Yosef's legs felt weak, and he sank to the ground. "What lies?" Yeshua knelt beside him. "The lies that divide us, that pit brother against brother, and nation against nation. The lies that obscure the true nature of God's love." Yosef looked into Yeshua's eyes, and he saw a reflection of his own struggles, his doubts, and his fears. He saw the faces of the people he had lost, friends and enemies alike, all caught in the relentless tide of conflict. "I don't understand," Yosef said, tears streaming down his face. "If God is love, why is there so much suffering?" Yeshua's expression was sad but resolute. "The suffering of the world is a result of human choices, of the freedom that God has given each of us. But even in the midst of suffering, there is hope, there is redemption, and there is a path to peace." As Yeshua spoke, Yosef felt a warmth spreading through him, a healing light that seemed to mend the very fabric of his soul. The pain and fear that had gripped him for so long began to melt away, replaced by a profound sense of peace. "What do I do now?" Yosef asked, his voice steady for the first time. "Return," Yeshua said. "Return to your life, but with a new understanding. Share the truth that you have seen, and be a light in the darkness. They are lying to us about God, but you can be a beacon of truth." With those words, the light around Yosef grew blinding, and he felt himself being pulled back to the world he had known. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying on the ground, surrounded by the concerned faces of his fellow soldiers. The pain in his chest was gone, replaced by a strange, unearthly peace. Yosef returned to the world with a mission, carrying the profound peace and clarity he had gained from his encounter with Yeshua. His fellow soldiers, who had witnessed the explosion and his miraculous survival, looked at him with a mix of astonishment and concern. "Yosef, are you all right?" His closest friend Eli asked, his voice filled with worry. Yosef nodded, his eyes still reflecting the ethereal light he had seen. "I'm more than all right, Eli. I've seen the truth." As days turned into weeks, Yosef found himself grappling with the weight of his experience. He couldn't ignore the urgent call to share the truth he had learned, the truth that transcended religious boundaries and human conflicts. He began to speak to his comrades, telling them about the encounter that had transformed him. Many were skeptical, some outright dismissive, but a few listened with open hearts. Among them was Sarah, a medic who had seen the worst of the conflict's horrors. She approached Yosef one evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over their encampment. "Yosef," she began, her voice gentle yet firm, "I've heard you speak about your experience. I want to understand more. How can we find peace in a world filled with so much hatred?" Yosef took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of the task before him. "It starts with us, Sarah. We have to be the change we wish to see. We have to love, even when it's hard. We have to forgive, even when it feels impossible. We have to see each other as brothers and sisters, not as enemies." As Yosef continued to share his message, whispers of his story began to spread beyond the confines of their unit. It reached the ears of commanders, politicians, and religious leaders, sparking debates and discussions. Some saw it as a beacon of hope, while others viewed it as a threat to the established order. One day Yosef was summoned to meet with Rabbi Levi, a respected figure in their community. The rabbi's study was lined with ancient texts, the scent of old parchment mingling with the faint aroma of incense. Rabbi Levi looked at Yosef with wise, penetrating eyes. "Yosef," the rabbi began, "I've heard about your encounter. It is not uncommon for people who have near-death experiences to see visions. But what you describe is unusual, especially given your background. Tell me, what do you believe God wants from us?" Yosef felt a profound sense of humility as he spoke. "Rabbi, I believe God wants us to embrace love and unity. The divisions between us, based on religion, nationality, or ideology, are man-made. They are not of God. We are being lied to about the nature of God. God's love is universal and unconditional." Rabbi Levi nodded thoughtfully. "This is a challenging message, Yosef. It requires us to look beyond our own traditions and prejudices. It calls for a deeper understanding and a greater compassion, but it is also a message that resonates with the core teachings of many faiths." As Yosef left the rabbi's study, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with obstacles and opposition. But he knew that his journey was just beginning. With each step, he carried the light of the truth he had seen, determined to be a beacon in a world overshadowed by darkness. As Yosef continued his journey, he found himself drawn to the ancient city of Jerusalem, a place where the past and present collided in a kaleidoscope of faith, culture, and history. The city's narrow streets and bustling markets were alive with the energy of countless pilgrims and residents, all seeking their own paths to peace and understanding. Yosef's message began to resonate with a diverse audience. He spoke in synagogues, churches, and mosques, his words transcending religious boundaries. He emphasized the universal truths he had learned from Yeshua, the importance of love, forgiveness, and unity. His story of encountering Jesus challenged deeply held beliefs and sparked a movement for interfaith dialogue and cooperation. One evening, as Yosef stood before a gathering of people from different backgrounds, he felt a profound sense of purpose. The crowd included Jews, Christians, Muslims, and those of no particular faith, all united by a common desire for peace and understanding. "Friends," Yosef began, his voice steady and clear, "we are all children of the same Creator. The divisions that have been imposed upon us are not of God but of man. We must look beyond our differences and embrace the common humanity that binds us together." He shared stories of kindness and compassion he had witnessed, moments that transcended the conflict and revealed the true nature of the human spirit. He spoke of the love he had felt in Yeshua's presence, a love that was unconditional and all-encompassing. As he spoke, a sense of hope and possibility filled the air. People began to share their own experiences, their own journeys of faith and doubt. They found common ground in their shared humanity and their desire for a world where love and understanding prevailed over hatred and division. Yosef knew that the path to true peace was not an easy one. There would be resistance, opposition, and setbacks. But he was determined to continue his mission, to be a beacon of truth and light in a world too often overshadowed by darkness. In the months and years that followed, Yosef's message continued to spread. He traveled to different parts of the world, meeting with leaders and ordinary people alike. His story inspired others to seek their own encounters with the divine, to question the lies they had been told, and to embrace a new understanding of God's love. One day, as Yosef stood on a hillside overlooking the Sea of Galilee, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he was content in the knowledge that he was fulfilling his purpose. He had seen the truth and he was sharing it with the world. "They're lying to us about God," Yosef whispered to the wind, his heart filled with a deep and abiding love. "But we can be the change. We can be the light." And with that, he continued his journey, one step at a time, guided by the eternal truth that had been revealed to him.